start the session MIL English, Modern Indian Languages in English. Let us start the subunits 3.1 and 3.2. In 3.1 we have A Village Lost to the Nation, and in 3.2 we have The Unthinkable in Climate Change, a view from Asia on literature and politics. Unit 3.1 A Village Lost to the Nation by Krishna Chandra Pujari. An estimated 80 million people have been displaced by dam projects worldwide. Their fate is largely unknown, but evidence shows that those affected tend to become impoverished and marginalized, and these impacts are long lasting. At the same time, the rate of dam construction shows no sign of abating. Whether the benefits of new dams will outweigh their costs remains to be seen, but the risk of displacement and related impoverishment and marginalization remains. In addition, the beneficial sediment that normally is washed down the river is blocked, which decreases the fertility of the soil downriver from the dam. Many humans are displaced due to dams. Humans who live in an area that is to be flooded due to a new dam have to relocate and lose their homes to the rising water. The author Krishna Chandra Pujari has successfully highlighted the author highlights the other side of development and the author has heard a lot about their village. The author then recollects how the families. It is because of the Hirakud Dam many villages were saved. With this we come to an. Let us understand a few important. Ghosh released a non-fiction book in India that examines climate change and climate policy from unusual perspectives. The Great Derangement, Climate Change and the Unthinkable, the International English edition is announced for 22nd September 2016. The book, based on lectures held at the University of Chicago in 2015, had got many positive reviews, and India it is likely to attract much international attention, not only because it represents an important voice from Asia, but also because it raises fundamental questions about how literature and politics address a global crisis phenomenon such as climate change. Ghosh makes two major points. First, he diagnoses. Secondly, Ghosh addresses the link between the history. Let us discuss social derangement. Amitav Ghosh. Let us discuss the limits of moral. Now, let us discuss the issue. It is a great merit of Amitav Ghosh's book, The Great Derangement. Let us just read a review of The Great Derangement, Climate Change and the Unthinkable. This is an obsession with the narrow and the personal has prevented us from integrating climate change into the literature of our time. So in this particular work, Amitav Ghosh forces us to confront the realities of ecological decay by examining how climate change is dealt with and in politics. Meera Kumar's review. She is a New York-based public relations professional. She has worked with Asian Development Bank, the State University of New York, and several Fortune 20 companies. She started her career as a journalist writing for various media outlets in Southeast Asia, including the Bangkok Post and The Nation. Let us have a look at her review. According to her, Amitav Ghosh's lyrical novel The Hungry Tide published in 2004, transported us to the magical world of Sundarbans in Bengal, where nature is the chief protagonist, where the non human elements of life must be recognized because they overwhelm us. Anyone who has read that book will not be surprised to witness the evolution of Ghosh's reflection on the environment in The Great Derangement. In this work, Ghosh forces us to confront the realities of environmental degradation not through the prism of statistics and factual evidence, but by examining a question: how did this come about? He attributes our failure to an aspect of the uncanny in our relation with our environment. Literary imagination in the great epics of the past was informed by an awareness of nature, its power, and its often fearsome presence in our lives. Why then did these intuitions withdraw? From the forefront of the literary imagination, the author asks. Ghosh attributes this to a habit of mind that proceeded by creating discontinuities, that is to say, they were trained to break problems into smaller and smaller puzzles until a solution presented itself. This is a way of thinking that deliberately excludes things and forces that lie beyond the horizon of the matter at hand. It is a perspective that renders the interconnectedness of unthinkable. Ghosh argues that contemporary culture has largely failed to confront climate change, partly because of the acceptance of one monolithic paradigm of European modernity, which has become the only standard of development. Ghosh warns us that the ordinary life today is not guided by reason. It is ruled rather by the inertia of habitual motion. So, if society is to change, the decisions will have to be made collectively within political institutions, as happens in wartime or during national emergencies. But we have divided our planet into nations, states, cities, clusters, or forests and designated protected areas. Our rivers are divided into sections of dams, our towns into gated communities. Collective thinking and collective responsibility is difficult in these circumstances. Modern fiction, too, has failed to incorporate and reflect issues of climate change because, in the period when human activity was causing climate change, the literary imagination was centered on the human. Unlike the realm of ancient epics, the non human today, if written about at all, is in the sphere of science fiction and fantasy. So let us ask a question: why does literature in our times ignore climate change? Ghosh posits that an increasing emphasis in 20th century literature was placed on observation of everyday details, traits of character, nuances of emotion, essentially of mundane life. The focus has been on the personal life, on chronicles of the self. The world has failed to rise up and take responsibility for climate change, which is the mysterious work of our own forms, and an obsession with the narrow, the personal, the continued absorption with the self that has prevented us from integrating climatic change into the literature of our time. Usually, books on climate change are full of facts, numbers, and figures which are impressive but oddly deadening. Ghosh's book is different. Even though the great derangement is informed by research in the area, he never succumbs to academic jargon. Instead, he approaches the topic with the device human beings have always used to think with: most naturally and powerful stories. This does not just make the book immensely readable, it also sustains Ghosh's main axis of argument. Ghosh traces the complex ways that globalization, empire, etc., are entangled with the history of carbon and our contemporary climate crisis. Talking about the never ending hustle between the West and the developing nations over the very hot topic of reducing the global carbon footprint. Ghosh believes that nature does not simply care when that monster cyclone comes towards us, comes towards any part of the country. Ghosh warns us that when future generations turns to the art and literature of our time, they will look at the altered world of their inheritance and they will conclude that we fail to recognize the enormity of this problem in our art and literature and dealt with it peripherally in our politics. Quite possibly, then this era will come to be known as the time of the Great Derangement. Before concluding the session, the final question that needs to be answered is, are we deranged? The acclaimed Indian novelist Amitav Ghosh here argues that the future generation may well think so. How else to explain our imaginative failure in the face of global warming? So, in this book, Ghosh has examined in detail our inability at the level of literature, history, and politics to grasp the scale and violence of climate change. With this, we have come to an end of the session. So, we have had a detailed discussion on 3.1 and 3.2. 3.1 was a village lost to the nation, and 3.2, the unthinkable in climate change, a view from Asia on literature and politics. With this, we come to an end of the session. Happy learning and stay safe. Thank you.